Whoa. Be careful not to get your fingers caught in it. That'll be on a blooper reel. Hi y'all, welcome back to my shop. Valentine's Day is coming on February 14th. It's looming fast. Of course, if you watch this video a few years later, you might watch this at any time. But I was looking for a project that might be good for Valentine's Day gift, and I went back and looked at one I'd done earlier on pendants. And I want to redo it. I want to show you some improvements, a new jig that I made based on jig design from Jim Duxbury, a very creative inventor, a woodturner in North Carolina. So let me share those with you. That earlier video done about 4 years ago, I showed you a couple of different chucking techniques. They both work. If you're only doing one, it might be worth a consideration, but frankly they were kind of disposable. They weren't going to last forever. They were kind of crude. Jim's Duxbury's design was much more sophisticated. It involves a sliding jig with a slot down it that kind of acts like a clamp. Now, I want you to learn from my mistakes, because in my first one that I made, following pictures of his design, I made it out of oak, but when I pinched down on it, the grain cracked. I did another one out of cherry, had the same result, so I had to go back to the drawing board. The slot allows you to clamp down on this disposable turned mandrel that fits that hole. My hole's 1 inch. You can make them larger, but they are consumable, expendable. I decided to make one out of plywood. Baltic birch would be best, but I used some quality cabinet grade, and I feel like it works very well. It's less likely to split. Like so. So Jim's design called it to be 2 3/8 inch wide, so that's what I cut this, and guess what? The widest traverse of my normal jaws will not fit that. So turns out the one that I sort of estimated would work earlier that broke on me is 1 7/8. So I've got to go back and cut this. So I guess the point is, any set of drawings you make sure or design, kind of walk through it to make sure it's going to fit in your chuck, because what fits on a Talon chuck won't necessarily fit on a Nova chuck that might not have as big a range of motion. One of the challenges of a wooden jig like this that's going to be clamped between two jaws is that you're going to wind up getting jaw damage that's going to interfere with making minor adjustments here. Okay, I've got the edges round off over my spindle sander. You may be wondering where I got this little piece of aluminum from. This came out of an old knee brace of some sort, and that's why we save all these little scraps, isn't it, gentlemen? Maybe this is not necessary, but it won't hurt either to get it. I did not realize when I did the first one, I drilled this hole on the drill press, but as somebody pointed out to me, it's far superior to drill it on the lathe when you got it between the chuck, because that way it'll automatically center, and that's important that you get it centered. Now, Jim's original design called for a 1 5/8 inch hole for his replaceable pivoting indexing part. But again, his could go 2 3/8. Mine's going to be smaller, so. But in any case, I made a 1 inch hole because I didn't need it to be as large, because I'm probably not going to use it for larger things that he was able to use his for. So 1 inch would be fine. I'm going to use a 1 inch Forstner bit. I've marked a center line vertically because that's the only one that's really important to measure, and then line it up with the tip of that Forstner bit. Then I'm going to clamp down on this, and that will automatically center this as I'm drilling. Now, if I was more careful, I'd probably put a disc of wood or something back here to stop any blowout, but I'm not going to be terribly concerned about that, because my jigs are GE, good enough. Alright, we're only going to turn this fairly slow at no more than about 500, 600 RPM. Just ease it in. Think about this, make sure I'm not going to drill in any part of the metal on the lathe. Nope, no problem. a little bit of separation of the last wafer, but other than that, I'm fairly happy with that drill hole. Now I've drawn a center line, this one right here, that doesn't extend all the way. It's going to be it's the exact center of this circle, and it'll be used for witness marks for adjusting this on indexing when I figure out how to do that. Meanwhile, I drilled a 5/16 inch hole here that's going to be the end of the drill, or the end of the saw cut. And the saw cut is slightly offset in order that you don't go right down the middle and obscure the witness mark. So one is below and the other one is above. So I'll go with the bandsaw and cut those slots. Okay, let's give it a trial run. I put a little stop block here. I drilled a hole, put a screw in it, put a little CA in it so I can register it against here, and that's registering on center. So now we're going to tighten this up a little bit, make sure it's snug. Then we're going to take a little 2-inch disc that I've got, and it's already got the, no, it doesn't have the paper off. This is real Turner's tape, none of that carpet tape business. I marked just about marked center on here, so that'll enable us to kind of put it in place. And then actually what I want to do is I want to get it nice and flat, so I need to put a block of some sort here so I can get some even pressure. And then we've got to let that tape, the adhesive on that tape, set up for a few minutes. Okay, I think it's almost set up long enough, so I'm going to remove that little block. But I think I'm going to keep a little tailstock support as long as possible. So I've got a little tiny little square here. I think it's small enough, it'll do. And so I can just bring this up. And you can see that the insert that I have is maybe 1.25 inches, but it is smaller than this blank that would normally not be any larger than 1 3/4 to maybe 2 1/4, maybe 2 1/2 for a pendant. So I wanted it to be small enough so this would hang over on the smallest size pendant for me to trim it. So let's get going. Out of the line of fire, always. Get the speed up. Get some of this plywood out of the way, I think. Now I'm going to get this round. Keeping my hand always behind the tool rest. Now this is the back side of the pendant we're turning first, so I don't have to get it, I just need to get it round, but I don't need to get it square. That looks almost round. I've just got a little bit more there. I think I'm just going to take a shear scraper, actually a negative rake scraper, and just make sure that I've got this flat, maybe slightly concave in the middle, and then I'll add a few decorations. Now we're going to touch that up with a little bit of sandpaper, keeping my fingers away from those propellers. Alright, now I want to make a couple of, just a few tiny little V-grooves. So I'll use my point tool for that. That's just so the back of the pendant will have some type of decoration. And that looks good. I think I will use a little sanding sealer on that. Now we're going to carefully pry this off and reverse it and do the front side. There we go. And took the tape with it, but I think we can reuse this tape, so I'm going to carefully peel it back, put it back on here. Tape can usually be used several times. Now in this case, I don't have a really good way of centering it, so I'm just going to use my fingers and hope to get it close. And I think it'll be close enough. And again, we're going to bring up some tailstock support and let it clamp down on that adhesive a little bit. When you go to reverse a piece, it can be a bit of a challenge getting it centered since you don't normally have a reference mark. There's a couple of possibilities. Number one, if it's unfinished, you can use one of these and mark it multiple times with a pencil, knowing that you're going to sand the pencil off. But if you get a finish, that's not an option. Another technique I found is using this with your center to kind of line it up like this with your live center, and that works fairly well. Once again, the grain orientation is a bowl blank orientation, so it's like working the bottom of the bowl. We're not going to go to the bottom, we're just going to come here, but the cut is going to be in this direction from the small end to the wider end. Get the speed up a little bit. Anchor the tool, ride the bevel, lift till it cuts. That profile looking pretty good. I think I want it a little rounder, not quite so sharp, so I think I'll just bring this around a little bit. And I hit that a little bit toward the end with let's see, I got the disc shaped the way I want. Yep, I think so. I think I'm going to go ahead and sand that now. I'll keep my hands out of the way. Slow the speed down a little bit. A little bit on the outside there. A little bit with the grain. It's got some nice color to that piece of wood. I'll sand that up to about 400. So I put on a coat of lacquer sanding sealer, let it dry, then I sanded it with lightly with 500. Now I put on some thin lacquer. Whoa! Be careful not to get your fingers caught in it. That'll be on a blooper reel. No injuries occurred to any wood turners in the making of this video. I'm going to drill a hole with a 3/8 inch drill bit, and so I want to move this now off center. And before I do that, I need to think about what the grain orientation has on this, if any. What'll be the top, what'll be the bottom. And I think that's going to be the bottom. So I need to loosen this and twist this to get that in the right orientation. So let me do that. That's parallel. That's going to be, I think, just, yeah, think about that a little bit. I think I'll have it just angled a little bit. So now I've got to decide how far over I'm going to move this, and I'm not sure. I marked here a ½ inch, and I think that may be appropriate for this. This is not real thick. So there's the witness mark, and I think I'm going to go over 5/8 of an inch. I'm just going to bump it over another 1/8 of an inch. This is where just a little trial and error comes in. So now I clamp it down and slowly drill a hole. I want this wall, I'm going to hollow down But I've got to have enough beef here for that cord. So I'm going to drill it no more than about 500. No reason to go fast. Just slowly ease this in. Hand on the chuck. Feel it coming through. Okay, I think it's definitely through. Okay. And so now I'm going to remove the chuck, drill chuck. Bring up the tool rest. And I'm going to just hollow in here just a little bit and bring it on down. I probably offset it almost too much, so I don't have too much room to bring that down. Let me think about how I want to operate. If I do it this way, it's going to grab. I think I'm going to come on the back side of that hole like this. Just lower this just a tiny little bit. And I think I'm going to use a detail gouge so I can get in there. It's a little pointier. And let's bring that down. Let's go. Speed up just a little bit. Now I'm not sure which direction to come in on that hole. I think I'll come in on this direction. Just slowly anchor the tool, ride the bevel, slowly lift to the cuts, back it up a little bit, come on down, back it up a little bit, come on down. Let's see what that looks like. That's looking pretty good. I think I can bring it out just a little bit more. Again, ride the bevel, back it up just a tiny little bit. Bring it on in. And I like that. I think that's going to look nice. Now I want to go ahead and sand that up and again, sanding sealer and lacquer. So here's a few of the pendants that I've made. I'd be interested in what y'all think of this. Stay tuned for the end. I've got an outtake a clip of attempt to use the indexing for doing some design work. Not very successfully. So I'm not going to go very far with this in indexing, but I just want to show you one way you can do a very precise index against a stop block is use a drill bit. In this case, this is I think 5/16. Now I've got this tiny little pendant blank I turned some years ago for a jewelry project that I never did anything with, so I'm just going to demonstrate how you can use this by off-centering it. And I'm just going to use, I think, this point tool. A concentric circle. Let's move over. Just move over a little bit with the tool, see what that does. Maybe come in, cut this way. Okay. Okay, I'm beginning to get the idea. So now let's maybe do it a little further over. And slice in a little bit in the other direction. Okay, so I'm beginning to get the idea. You know, if you hold the tool in place and do the cut, and then based on your offset and based on how you indexed it and turn it, you're gonna get a different effect. And some of these are going to overlap, so let me just turn it a little bit more and let's just see what happens. Obviously this is something I've got to steady up on a little bit. Yeah, okay. So you get the idea. You can index this, you can offset it, you can turn it around and just hold the gouge in place, come in from both sides, and you can get some interesting effects. Let's just move one up one more time. Parallel to that one. And come in from the other side and make a little V groove. Uh-oh. I think I broke off the... Yeah, I broke it off too deep, so... Anyhow, something to play with.